Today is Friday, January 30th. We're talking about a new direction for immigration enforcement in Minneapolis and how activists are still planning a nationwide show of resistance today. Also, why President Trump is suing his own Treasury and where blizzard conditions are expected in the U.S. Plus, a new study identified the main factor in longevity, and it's not just a healthy lifestyle. This weekend's Grammy Awards could make history, and a unique group has found a way to make exercise more meaningful. Those stories and even more news to know coming up. Welcome to The Newsworthy, all the day's news in less than 15 minutes. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. Let's do this. The new commander of the immigration crackdown in Minneapolis has confirmed the strategy is changing. In his first public remarks since being dispatched, Border Czar Tom Homan admitted, quote, "We can do better." And he said he's working on making the operation safer, in part by having federal agents more focused on targeted operations to arrest immigrants with records of criminal charges or convictions. So not the broad disruptive street sweeps that have drawn widespread backlash, even though he said no undocumented immigrant will be immune from deportation. Homan also said he would scale back the force of 3,000 agents deployed to Minneapolis on one condition: cooperation from state and local leaders. For example, he said he wants more access to Minnesota jails so ICE agents can pick up targeted immigrants when they're released from local custody. Local and state leaders say they're at least on board with fewer federal agents on the street. As for those agents who are still on the streets, Reuters cited an internal guidance that went out from a high-ranking ICE official telling them to avoid engaging or communicating with so-called agitators unless absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, a stepped-up enforcement effort in Maine appears to have ended after just a week. In that week, ICE says it arrested more than 250 people. So far in Minnesota, federal agents have arrested more than 3,000 people. Today, the latest protest against ICE is expected to go national. Activists are calling for another economic blackout like the statewide one last week. They're asking people to not work, go to school, or shop as a way to show their disapproval for immigration enforcement tactics and recent shootings at the hands of federal officers. It's not clear exactly how many people will actually participate today, but a website for the national shutdown lists hundreds of organizations as endorsers. With just hours to go before a partial government shutdown kicks in, President Trump and Senate Democrats confirmed there is a deal to avoid it. It's the one we briefly told you about yesterday that has the Senate approving 5 out of 6 spending bills that already cleared the House, funding most of the federal government for the rest of the fiscal year. As for that 6th spending bill, the plan is to pass at least a 2-week extension to give lawmakers more time to hash out the details. And of course, that one funds the Homeland Security Department. And several Senate Democrats have said they won't back it unless it includes some restrictions for ICE. For example, they want to require warrants for arrests and detention quotas, have agents update their use of force standards, and more. As of this morning, Republicans like President Trump have not ruled out those demands, but for now it seems most lawmakers' first priority is avoiding a shutdown. Even with this deal, there could be some lapse in funding since any changes to the package have to be approved by the House. And since House lawmakers are out this week, that means calling them back, which might not happen before the deadline. Still, any funding gap is not expected to last long. President Trump is now suing the U.S. Treasury and IRS, demanding at least $10 billion from the government he runs. The lawsuit accuses the agencies of not doing enough to keep an IRS contractor from leaking his tax returns to the press back in 2019. That contractor was already sentenced to 5 years in prison. But this is a civil suit. Specifically, it comes from not only Trump, but also his family business and 2 oldest sons. They claim the leak was done to illegally influence the results of the 2020 election and hurt the Trump family's reputation. And because of that, it specifically says the government acted in an overtly political nature. Though remember, at the time, the Treasury Department and IRS were part of the first Trump administration. Technically, Trump filed this lawsuit in his personal capacity, not on behalf of the presidency, but it is unusual since Trump now has the ability to fire people on the other side of the case. And typically in lawsuits like this, the U.S. Justice Department defends the Treasury and IRS. So ultimately, the same government officials who typically answer to President Trump will have to come up with legal positions against him and weigh possible settlement offers with him. The lawsuit calls for at least $10 billion in damages. A former Illinois sheriff's deputy was sentenced to 20 years in prison for killing a woman he was supposed to help. You may remember this story. Sonia Massey called 911, worried there might have been an intruder in her home. but one of the sheriff's deputies that responded, Sean Grayson, ended up shooting her. At this sentencing hearing yesterday, Grayson admitted he'd made terrible decisions that night and apologized for her death. Massey's children also spoke in court about the damage he caused, and the judge sentenced him with the maximum possible penalty, saying, quote, "That bit of unreasonable rage needs to be deterred." This is a rare example of a law enforcement officer being sent to prison for a shooting that happened while on duty. Massey's death also led to a new law in Illinois that requires stricter background checks for police hires. The winter storm expected to hit the East Coast could cause a potential blizzard in the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia, and Tennessee. Forecasts say it will start this evening over Appalachia, with snow spreading across the whole region tomorrow. And there's talk of a blizzard since the storm could bring powerful winds, too. Snow totals could range from 6 inches to a full foot, and coastal flooding is possible. The Northeast could also get a few inches of snow, but not the same extreme conditions as the Southeast. Meanwhile, much of the country is still in a deep freeze. Today, the wind chill is forecast to hit 13 degrees below zero in Minneapolis. Tomorrow, the wind chill is expected to drop 2 degrees in Atlanta and -1 in New York City. Then on Sunday, the cold spreads all the way to Florida, where record lows are possible. We have more news for you still coming up, but first, a quick break for our sponsor. Whether you call it a New Year's resolution or not, one simple, convenient way to impact your kids' health is with Hiya's children's vitamins. While some children's vitamins have a bunch of sugar and are stuffed with artificial additives, Hiya took the opposite approach. Zero sugar, zero gummy junk, just clean nutrition. And yet kids actually love them. At least I can say that for sure about my kid. He's been taking Hiya's children's vitamins and probiotics for over 2 years now and still runs to the pantry with excitement to take them daily. And I love that Hiya worked alongside pediatricians and nutrition scientists to create this chewable vitamin that packs 12 organic fruits and vegetables, plus 15 essential vitamins and minerals into every dose. And if getting your kids to eat vegetables feels like an impossible daily battle, Hiya's new Kids Daily Greens Plus Superfoods is a total game changer. It's basically chocolate milk stuffed with veggies. It's a greens powder that's packed with over 55 whole food-sourced ingredients. Just mix 1 scoop with milk or any non-dairy beverage and watch them actually enjoy something that's secretly fueling their growing bodies. Now, we've worked out a special deal with Hiya for their best-selling children's vitamin. Receive 50% off your first order. Yeah, half off. To claim this deal, you must go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy. This deal is not available on their regular website, so go to hiyahealth.com/newsworthy and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults. Now back to the news. Aging is mostly hereditary, at least according to a new study published this week. To come up with the findings, researchers built a mathematical model to consider the effects of biological aging. Then they fine-tuned it using lifespan data from thousands of twins who shared identical genes. They did not factor in lives that were cut short by things like accidents and murders, only causes that actually came from inside the body. Ultimately, their analysis led to an estimate that genes account for more than 50% of the differences in lifespan. After that, they say it depends on all sorts of things like environmental influences, random biological effects, and the usual lifestyle factors like sticking to a good diet, getting regular exercise, and not smoking. One of the researchers calculated healthy or unhealthy habits on their own can add or subtract 5 years or so from a life expectancy, but that they wouldn't be enough to take someone with the genetic potential to live to be 80 and turn them into a centenarian. Of course, there's also quality of life to consider, in which healthy habits could really improve things. All of this said, there are some outside experts who say they're not entirely convinced by these findings and would like to see more research. But the co-author of the study says it's at least promising. And his ultimate hope is that one day genes can be turned into therapy to slow down aging and in turn slow down all age-related diseases at once. Well, this week, Venezuelan lawmakers approved historic reform for its nationalist oil policy that goes back decades. And yesterday, acting President Delcy Rodriguez signed it. The measure gives Venezuelan officials more flexibility to tweak taxes and royalties, improving conditions for foreign oil companies. To put it simply, this lets them make more money by giving less of it to the Venezuelan government. And soon after this new measure was passed, the White House announced it was easing sanctions on Venezuela's oil industry. Already, the Trump administration issued a general license letting oil companies do more business in the country. It's still not clear if these moves will actually convince American oil giants like ExxonMobil and ConocoPhillips to go back to Venezuela, since there's still political instability and energy infrastructure that stands to be improved. But if anything, the change is expected to help the large companies already there, like Chevron. Also yesterday, President Trump announced he's reopening the commercial airspace over Venezuela. And with that, American Airlines said it will resume service from the U.S., making it the first major U.S. carrier to do so since 2019. Of course, all of this comes weeks after the U.S. captured Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, and became more involved with decisions made by the interim government. The Trump administration has said this influence will only last until a peaceful transition happens. But this week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio told senators that transition won't be fast or easy. To be continued. All around the world this week, there has been uproar from fans of a big-name pop star. Pre-sale tickets for Harry Styles' new tour appeared online this week, and even in the pre-sale, prices for the best seats have topped $1,000 apiece. So fans have been flooding social media to criticize the pricing and question the affordability of live music overall. Of course, Harry Styles fans aren't alone in their frustration with high ticket prices. And this week, one country rock artist took the matter to Capitol Hill. Kid Rock gave passionate testimony and offered up potential solutions. He suggested giving artists more control over their ticket inventories and how they're sold. He also advocated for a 10% price cap in the resale market to prevent price gouging. And finally, he called for a ban on speculative pricing, which is when resellers list tickets on secondary platforms even before they own them. It's not clear if all or any of this will actually get done, but it's apparently being seriously considered since this issue has been coming up in D.C. for a while now. Already, the FTC under both President Trump and former President Biden sued Live Nation and Ticketmaster, which together control roughly 70 to 80% of the ticketing market for major American concert venues. A Live Nation executive also testified this week, saying his company has already made big changes in its policies to crack down on things like sellers using multiple accounts. But since many fans, artists, and lawmakers say there's more that can be done, bills to address ticketing could soon come up for a vote. The Grammy Awards are this Sunday, and several artists have the chance to make history. Bad Bunny, Kendrick Lamar, and Lady Gaga are all considered frontrunners for the big Album of the Year prize. If it goes to Bad Bunny, he would be the first Spanish-language album to win. And if Lamar wins, he would become the first solo male rapper to get the award. But many fans are pulling for Lady Gaga, since she's never won any of the top 4 Grammy prizes despite more than 2 decades in the music business. Lady Gaga is also scheduled to perform, as well as Sabrina Carpenter, Justin Bieber, Reba McEntire, Lauryn Hill, Post Malone, and many more. Grammy's producers have also promised more surprises. Comedian Trevor Noah is back to host for the 6th time, which he says will be his last. The Grammys will air Sunday night at 8 Eastern on CBS and Paramount+. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Feel Good Friday, when we bring you one extra feel-good or positive news story before the weekend. Thousands of people in the UK have found a way to get in shape by giving back. They belong to an organization called Good Gym. There's no expensive gym membership. All that's required is a desire to walk, run, or bike, and a willingness to do volunteer work. In one recent project, volunteers jogged a mile to get to a new community garden. Then they did plenty of digging, squatting, and lifting to clean it up. Other recent workouts have included clearing old Christmas trees from sidewalks, planting fruit trees, and setting up cots for homeless people. The organization also pairs volunteers with retirees who want someone to talk to or need help with tasks like moving heavy furniture or lawn care. People are encouraged to run, walk, or cycle to their assignments. Members say signing up and feeling like they're a part of something positive gives them the motivation to work out regularly. Plus, many of them like the opportunity to socialize with other volunteers. Now, Good Gym is working to expand and inspire as much as it can. Thank you so much for listening today. We'll be back tomorrow with our special edition Saturday episode about this year's severe flu season and conflicting recommendations about vaccines for kids. Find that in your podcast feed tomorrow morning. Then we'll be back on Monday with the latest news. For now, have a great weekend.